And 7 o'clock. Whenever you're ready.
Good evening, everybody. Public participation for the next 20 minutes. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the council? Okay, lovely lady there. Hello.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. My name is Michelle Alford, and I came to the council a few weeks ago about 5 things that were concerning me about repairs in Shaftesbury High Street and around the town. Now, I've just been out, Shooters Lane is the most worrying of all of those. I have a petition signed by 102 people here with me tonight, and a letter to go to the attention of the Town Council and to Dorset County Council Highways. I'll read you the letter of my concerns and the people that have signed my petition. We, the citizens of the town of Shaftesbury, Dorset, have signed this petition to enforce the rebuilding of the stone walling in Shooters Lane, Shaftesbury, Dorset. It is aimed at both Shaftesbury Town Council and Dorset County Council Highways. The stone walling is dangerously falling away onto a public footpath in Shooters Lane. Concerns are that the soil is also falling away, which may weaken the tree roots above the stone wall, which in time may cause a serious accident to unfortunate members of the public that use this footpath daily from a falling tree. The footpath is a means of getting to the town's facilities, place of work and school by young and old alike. It is also a popular walk into town for visitors staying in the area. We urge these councils to listen to the concerns for repair work to be carried out before the onset of winter weather conditions, which may cause more falls of stone from the wall. The handrail is not easily used with the so-called safety fencing which is there at the moment. Hence, 2 falls from the public have already occurred. Vandalism has also been happening, removal and emptying of sandbags, and a large Tesco trolley was pushed down there the other day. We await the outcome of this serious concern as soon as possible. Thank you very much. I'd like to say we pay one of the highest Dorset Council tax, and we're the last to get any repairs, be it drains, road or maintenance in the town just lately. And I'd like to remind you of your description on the council website, which says we will work conscientiously to define and provide best value, high quality services that respects its heritage here in Shaftesbury, making a great place to live, work and visit. That's what my plea is about. And as I say, I will give my petition. I also have photographs and a lot of very many people have got out more concerned about this footpath. It's a bit like a miniature diamond swallow on the street, and I think it needs looking at seriously. Thank you. Thank you.
Next person who had their hand up.
Hi, I'm John from Grosvenor Road. Back in July 2020, primarily contacted also highways regarding speed limit and crossings road in the road. And sadly, you've got a negative response from Porch Dorset, saying that there was not enough foot traffic for either. As we know, the survey was carried out in October at the northern end of Grosvenor Road during lockdown. So, you know, in my view, it hasn't whatsoever. Again, in June of this year, I had contact with you and you discussed the matter at quite some depth. And it was agreed that we would appoint a surveyor, and I believe it's actually in the minutes this evening, but it hasn't been, whether anybody has been appointed or not later, maybe. Which obviously we would urge you On Elfrid today, Elfrid Radio, it was rather interesting listening. There was a person from Littledown complaining about traffic and heavy lorries, which maybe some of us have heard. But also, one of the requirements she asked for was a speed reduction. So there again, it's Littledown as well. As a resident of Grosvenor Road, we get terrible vibrations from the heavy commercial vehicles. Before the road surface was repaired some weeks or months ago, within the last month actually, it was terrible, but it still vibrates when vehicles, heavy commercial vehicles, go down the road. We've spoken to a couple of people from the Dorset highways. One of the guys actually was putting a thing through the door just to see what the residents thought of how the roads were repaired and so on. And the guy I spoke to was in agreement that actually it would benefit if the speed limit was reduced to 30 miles per hour, and also agreed with me that in today's world, that road would not be a 40-mile-an-hour road because it's not 1.5 meters away and so on and so forth. So that's the thing. Also, we've discovered that Dorset should have reviewed speed limits as part of their policy procedures. We have not found any evidence that they've actually reviewed those speed limits. So that's the thing. At the June the 1st meeting, Mrs. Yeatmans, you said about how you managed to get 30 miles an hour down near your home. Just as a quick tally, we've got 5 road junctions off of the Grosvenor Road. Soon it will be 6, because there's going to be a new exit from the estate at the top, which Dorset accepted. And also the number of drives coming into that road is in excess of 35.
Wow.
So I believe, from taking what you said, we've got some chance here. But basically, I think what we're asking is, what can we do as residents with you to get things moving in Dorchester? That's what we'd like to know.
If I can give an update just on the actions from the last meeting. Yep.
Okay, so thank you. Right, so I sit down.
Yeah, please do take a seat again. So just to update members of the public present, the request to seek a highway specialist to look at what we can do independent of Dorset Council. That request has gone out. Because I have no, I'm not an expert in highways, I've gone to one initially to scope what it is that we need to be asking for prices for, and I'm waiting for a response. In fact, it's been a good few weeks now since I sent that request out, so I will be chasing to get that up, but it is moving, albeit slowly, sadly. In terms of the Dorset Council review of speed limits, I'm not aware of that either. I have monthly meetings with Dorset Council, and it isn't something that's cropped up at any of those either. So I will do what I can to find out for you. Those meetings have paused for August and will resume again in September. But in the meantime as well, it might be something that Councillor Tippins can help advise on in terms of the long cross scenario, and we can liaise with you as well in terms of getting resident involvement. Thank you.
Okay, Bernard?
Yes, okay. I missed the beginning. So then, do I need to
You don't need the mic unless we're having trouble hearing.
Yes.
It will do if you need to use it. That's it, it's on.
I did send through a plan, which might aid my points in relation to beach streams. Is it possible to have that up as a reference? I know I think that one.
It's not that one. If there's any in particular, if I place them all one on top of each other, and then you can let me know which one you want showing. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes, it's comment.
That's okay. If you want to direct me, I'm very happy.
I don't.
Yes, where would you like me to zoom to?
On the little side, little building is the red building, and shows the whole side in front of it. And along, if you go a little further to the left, so we see the trees on the street. Yes, that would be fine. Yeah. I'd like to bring up the issue. I think it is an ongoing issue of the beech trees and their felling spread survival along the little frontage of the A3 highway. A few weeks ago, I made a plea that something really quite appalling is happening on our doorstep with regard to these trees. Little expected that their contractor was out of order, that they were out of order in turn because they have a pre-construction site meeting. Therefore, there was nobody triggered to supervise the works. Therefore, the civil engineer free rein the excavated through roots and subsequently made trees which were to be protected, maintained, and stable. There are 2 trees to be felled as part of the group application. One at the entrance to the site. Don't you pinpoint that one? Yes, that one, and the one further along to northwestern direction, which is before them, there to facilitate little and their wonderful banner sign. So 2 trees are approved to be felled. Moving further along is a cluster of 3 trees. Now they have been substantially damaged. Their roots have been substantially damaged by excavation almost immediately to within a metre of their roots. Those trees we gathered from the council. It's been advised that they are felled. Now, I'm really seeking clarification because there has been alternative view given by an arboriculturist or an arborist, tree surgeon, or an arboriculturist, that those trees could be saved, and indeed an ecologist could be saved if we wait and see and that those trees have a degree of successful survivability. I wonder what the current situation is, because has it been, it's rumoured that 3 trees have been agreed to be felled, that's been agreed by the councillor, Tim Cook, and Dorset Highways trees, not surgeons, 3 officers. It's now surfaced on the internet and elsewhere after 3 communications today that 5 trees are felled. Now whether it's the 3 plus the 2 that are felled, I don't know. I wonder if we could have it clarified. And also, I did request that works were stopped. I did request on behalf of the tree group that there was an immediate meeting with all those concerned, including tree group, who first picked this up at the original planning application stage, both Woodhampton Town Council and the Dorset Council. The tree was involved. So I wonder if we could have an update today on the current situation. I don't know if that's responsible now or whether anybody else wants to.
I think if it's part of the procedure, it's probably timely to bring Tim in straight away, who is here to respond to that very question.
Well, it's probably better to speak first. Thank you.
Yeah, but if anybody does have any more points regarding the trees, make them now and then I can answer everything in one go. Might be easier that way.
All right.
Good point. Richard, yes, by all means.
Can you hear me without me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I'd like to add a bit more to what Bernie has said, because what clearly was never put across in the beginning, as it should have been, is that these aren't any trees. These are a commemorative avenue planted to commemorate the 80th birthday of the Queen Mother in 1980, which is why Roger Booth turned up to confirm that he had been instrumental in that. It also appears that there's been a massive disconnect between A, what Lidl applied for, B, what Dorset Council looked at, and it appears as if two different tree officers, two different departments didn't speak to each other. And I think I'm speaking as a resident now, I think there's a strong case as two independent ecologists or horticulturists have apparently confirmed, one being Mike Cumming, who is known to this council, of Darwin Ecology, have said that there isn't a need for these trees to come down because they might survive. They might survive. Some members will remember that a similar situation occurred near the petrol station where Tesco put through a footpath where they shouldn't have done, and it appeared to damage the roots of two beech trees either side, anyway, whatever happened, two trees were, no, that's right, there were two beech trees there. I think it would be then Dorset's tree officers said, oh yes, they'll have to come down. Now nothing happened, probably because he left or forgot, but those trees survived perfectly well for several years. Mysteriously, they suddenly got cut down. Don't know why, because it wasn't needed. I mean, the trees were clearly not doing that well, but they were surviving. So I really hope that this council, these members, these elected members, say to Tim, because he apparently supports the felling. Now I know why he supports the felling, because as soon as an officer says to him, "Oh, health and safety," the tendency is to say, "Oh my God, of course they're going to fall on some poor lady, and we're going to get sued, so we've got to cut them down." If independent experts say that is a faint possibility only, they might survive, I would say, because that is an important avenue of trees, that this council should put pressure on Dorset to say, hang on a minute, don't be so hasty. Councils throughout the country are notorious for lopping down trees at the first opportunity. And I would say you have a very strong weapon in the new or the imminent biodiversity bill, which hasn't come into force yet. I don't know when it will. Maybe Tim knows and maybe Bernie knows. But that bill is going to put a prime responsibility on all planning applications to prove was it net biodiversity gain? That is 30. That's great. Yes, which means biodiversity is going to be put right at the top. Quite rightly so. We've got to try and save the planet and therefore ourselves. So therefore, I think you've got a very strong case to say to Tim, come on, Tim, show a bit of courage here. You go back down to Dorchester and say, no, you will not cut down those trees because my electors want me to save those trees for posterity if we possibly can. Lidl's would be delighted if the entire avenue disappeared. Then everyone can see their marvellous glass building full of discounted goods. Wonderful for them.
Richard, I'm going to have to,
Okay.
we're running out of time now.
That was my point on the beech trees. There were a couple of smaller points I would like to make after.
Okay, everyone's going to have to be quite on point.
Yeah, okay.
Tim, please.
To answer the main point, Dorset Council's tree officer has seen the damage on the site side. I spoke to the other independent arboriculturist on Monday, a guy called Nick Hellis, who's based down in Oborne. We had a very long chat, and I asked him whether he had seen the damage on the roadside or the damage on the site side. He hasn't seen the damage on the site side. So unless and until he does, and I am trying to work with tree officer and Lidl to arrange a meeting so Nick can actually go and see what the Dorset tree officer has based his judgment on, because there is extensive root damage. I attended a meeting 2 weeks ago with the tree officer, with Lidl's arboriculturalist and the site manager. We had a good look round, and the Dorset Council tree officer was adamant that due to the root damage, which has, as Bernie said, occurred up until about a metre from the trunk, those 3 trees, unfortunately, now we believe, the information that I'm getting from the expert is that those trees are now structurally unsound. Added to that is the possibility that because of that root damage, fungus and disease quite possibly could have got inside. And that is the problem is with that the damage that fungus and disease causes is not visible. And therefore the tree is being eaten away from the inside, again making it structurally unsound. And I quite agree with Richard actually that there is the potential damage. Where we differ is that I don't want to say take them out because I fear that Dorset Council will be sued. I fear, and my own personal fear is that one of those trees goes down and injures somebody. That is my only concern. I do take on board and I fully support the fact that those trees were planted by past members of this council to quite rightly commemorate a life event in our history. However, I would very strongly question anybody's, they're putting their heart in those trees staying as opposed to damage caused, injury caused, and let's not overthink the problem, but we've got to remember that that's the damage is caused on the windward side of the trees. Once that car park, once the hoardings come down, the wind is going to go across from west to east. And if those trees are in any way unstable, the only way they are going to fall is directly onto the A3, a major trunk road. Picking up on the gentleman's point here, we have got traffic coming through between Dorset, Poole and M4. So I am doing my best to arrange a meeting so that the independent arboriculturalist can go on site and assess the damage and then possibly reassess his conclusions.
Okay,
That wraps it up for that.
fantastic. I have to say we've already over time for public participation. We do have quite a
Wish.
Yeah.
If you can keep it brief, I think that might be wise.
Okay, so is there anyone who came this evening to speak who has not? Tim, thank you so much, first of all. Thank you very much for updating us. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak who hasn't had a chance to speak? Yeah.
Just to remind council, Raspberry Lane is one of the few sites in the whole of Shaftesbury which is still a dark sky outlet site. I don't know the answer to the question as to whether there's a proposal for external lighting on the garage erected on the side of the neck.
Okay, good point, Gillian. Thank you. Now,
Bernard did say he had two
okay.
points.
I think just 2 minutes. Can I just say though that Bernard, if you're going to speak, Richard, I'm afraid I can't have you both speaking because we are really over time now. And so will this be about?
Question in relation to the future item on the agenda.
Yes.
Two images.
Great.
And I would like in one line just explain what they are. May I do so at the time, because I think they amplify what the planning doesn't. That is.
We're talking about ATS here.
Sorry, no, solar farm.
Oh, the solar farm. Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, by all means. Yes.
I provided a plan and image. I think it's quite familiar. It's not within and
Great.
and I'll make it one line on each image. That photograph shows the middle. Sorry.
So I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused. Are we not dealing with this when we come to discuss the solar farm?
Could we do that, please? And I'll make those the 2 points of reference
Yes.
at that time.
Lovely. Yes.
With your permission.
Yes, that's fine. Right, Richard, I'm really sorry.
Just a very quick point, Chairman. It helps to the gentleman. Sorry, I don't know your name. But
Yes,
he
Mr.
should,
Button.
he should remember that we have two county councillors, him being one of them, Eric being the other. His
Yeah.
job is to lobby on his behalf.
Yes,
So if he
excellent,
wants to make some waves, then Tim's here.
lovely. Okay, right, we really must move on. Right, apologies. Claire, do we have?
Okay, so yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Proctor due to personal commitments, and Councillor Chase have conflicting engagement this evening.
Okay, thank you.
If we can seek to have those accepted by the committee.
Seconded.
John Lua and
Vote, lovely.
unanimous.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Do any, thank you. Do any councillors have any declarations of interest? And I just remind everyone that should you discover an interest in the process of going through planning applications, if you could notify us. Thank you. I don't know.
No, that's all.
Excellent.
Fine.
Right, minutes. So we are talking about minutes to be adopted. The 27th of April and the 1st of June, the accuracy has already been agreed informally. If we could agree the accuracy of the 6th of July minutes, perhaps we could treat these as a block and vote all in one go.
I'm happy with the accuracy of 6th of July.
Lovely.
Yes.
Do I have a seconder? And a seconder. Can we vote on the accuracy of all three? Yeah. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, moving on. Officer reports. So presumably you have all read this. Actions arising and so forth. Do you have any questions on these?
Okay, we will
Great.
mark that as received and noted. Thank you, Chair.
Great. Okay, we'll crack straight on to planning applications. So first, the main planning application, which is the proposal to erect 24 dwellings from vehicular access, car parking and landscaping at the former ATS Euromaster site on New Road. Just before we discuss this, can I just remind everyone that this site already has extant planning approval. That is to say that planning approval was given for 28 sheltered housing units, that the conditions, pre-development conditions required, just 2 minutes, required before they could start building have been discharged and approved. So the current owners can start building on that site tomorrow if they so choose. And I just think it's important that we have that context in mind. Karen, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I'd like to propose that the committee objects to this planning application for the following reasons. First of all, there's 24 houses, or sorry, dwellings. There are no affordable housing on the site. There is no S106 heads of terms. I propose that it's brought to committee because, oh, sorry, there is no conservation report. It's a mundane design and it's in the conservation area. So I'd like Councillor Cook or Derek Beer, Councillor Beer, to bring it to committee. I'd like to propose that it's brought to committee. I'd also like to propose that the committee adds a statement in the objection that because this has been an eyesore to this town, that we get financial compensation from the developer, because it is a dreadful eyesore, and I don't understand how this can be allowed, especially when it's right in the entry to the town. And I think that the money should be used for something that adds happiness or contentment within the town. So, for example, street art or flower planting. So that's, oh, and there is no highways report either. That's been deferred. So we can't, I propose objection on all of those grounds.
Okay. Do you have any points you would like to make?
Well, yes. It's a difficult one. I mean, they've gone back to the drawing board, tried again, but unfortunately, I think the core problem is they're trying to pack too much in. And while they have planning permission for sheltered accommodation. It's a totally different thing than dwelling homes. And pick up on Karen's point about affordable housing. One of the reports in there said that though they talk about providing much needed family housing, having any gardens, and one of the things you need for family house is gardens. So they don't actually fit the bill. And there are other concerns raised by refuse about where they're going to collect the bins. The access is, if you look at the access, once you've got cars parked in there, 2 cars per house plus other stuff. How they're going to get in there, get the bins out, has been raised as a concern by refuse. So are they going to put the bins out on the street? That's been raised by, there's no answer to that. So we don't know. The flood risk engineers issued an objection, and we do know, and I can't remember the exact detail, I've got to explain some of the sort of hydrodynamics on that estate and where the water flows down. And they actually do say in their plan they're going to, in order to manage the sewage, we'll have to have a separate pumping unit to cope with sort of, foul water discharge. The risk to that, of course, is to the houses downstream, should that fail. So while I commend the planners, the designers for coming forward with something that looks better, it hits the same fundamental problem. It doesn't meet the requirements of the area. There's too much to be put on too small a space. It is not family. It will not provide family homes. It's just simply too crowded. And I think we would be wrong to support it in its current form. I do recognise that the work they put into it, but it's not just us raising concerns. A lot of other organisations are, and they are very valid.
Chairman, I broadly agree with what the two people said. I don't think we should support it. I don't go as far as Karen's proposal. I don't want to second that because there are items in it I don't altogether agree with. What I do agree with is that we shouldn't be satisfied with it because it falls short on so many areas. I've noted a few of the ways in which it conflicts with the neighbourhood plan, which has not been referenced at all. I think it should be because it's now it's in operation. So I suggest that what we need to do is agree that we disagree with it, that we object to it, and we enumerate all those things that we have in common that we would like to see addressed for the reasons that we disagree. I think I've made a lot of comments. I won't go through them, but I think it's better that we jointly air our individual views when we've got probably a proposal in the second before the main wording.
Yeah, I mean, I've got, quite a few points about it as well. Councillor Proctor did bring up the issue of the archaeological assessment.
Yes.
In the design and access statement, they have said that they don't see why they should provide an archaeological assessment, as the original application didn't require one, and the last application, even though it was fused, didn't require one. And clearly there was nothing there of any interest to trigger an archaeological assessment. So I called the senior the senior archaeological advisor for Dorset Council, and I spoke to him this afternoon, and actually an archaeological assessment, God, between archaeology and arboriculture, it's hell's bells this evening. And he did say that an assessment was done last summer, and whilst they didn't find any tunnels, they did find items of interest. He has emailed the case officer and flagged this up and said that he doesn't feel that it should go ahead without them doing an archaeological assessment, and that letter went to the case officer on Friday. So that's quite a recent thing, and that's why probably his response has not been uploaded onto the planning files. Yes, I mean, there are loads of points. I mean, they've used reconstituted stone on 3 of the buildings, and I think, quite frankly, for such a small amount of building, it can be green sand. There are anomalies in the annotations on the drawings and what is then said in the design and access statement. For instance, slate tiles are mentioned in the statement, but on the drawings it says slate style tiles. Well, as we know, that can be any old kind of rubbish. So it's slate or nothing, frankly. And we don't want anything reconstituted. A safe crossing point was mentioned in previous planning applications. Nothing is said about that here, and we would absolutely insist on that. Certainly insisting it being considered by highways. There would seem to be no provision for electric charging of vehicles in the underground car park, and there could at least be provision down there, I feel. There are no material details for road and car park services. They haven't stated what the architrave of the windows is, or the sills, what material the windows themselves will be. And there are various other items here that I could go on with. But what I would propose is that we object to this plan and that we delegate the response to the town clerk in consultation with council officers, that we can, Claire has an opportunity to compile our points.
Okay, so
Does that work?
yes, sort of. So Karen obviously put the first proposal for objection.
Yes.
So that is a proposal put, so if we can get that seconded, and as you have also proposed objection, and John, you also did, I think that's not going to be a difficult one.
Yeah.
So we can get objection as putting the proposal forward
Yeah.
for this evening, so that we keep as much of the decision making in the public domain.
Yeah.
If we can get the key points, then what I can go away and do is work up the response that ties it in with the policies in the neighbourhood plan, the local plan, and the national planning policy framework. So I won't add or amend your objections. All I will do is connect them to the existing policies.
Okay.
I'll second Karen's objection.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you've got
Katie and AA. So if I can just have a shape of what you want me to link them to, and I will, before I submit, circulate it to you all so you're happy with the content.
Okay. So is Sarah writing all our
Sarah's writing
particular
and I'm
points?
recording, so we're all good.
Fantastic.
So I
we
suggest you go to Karen first.
yes. So Karen, your key points
Right,
were.
right. Yes, my key point is no affordable housing and there is no S106 heads of terms. So Richard Dobson, who is the chief person in Dorset Council, actually stated this in his report.
Yes, he did, and I did know
He
that.
stated
Yeah.
that, and that no planning application should be approved by Dorset Council until the public know what the S106. So if I was going to say what my key thing is going to be, it's no affordable housing,
Yeah.
and there are no S106 heads of terms
Okay.
associated with its planning application.
Thank you. And you have
I think what effectively goes to the area, it's because it is too crowded, traffic management, because it will be too crowded. The refuse people are already raised issue about bins, the flood risk engineers are raised issue about floods. But I think the thing about the family housing is that they talk about it, but the design doesn't present itself as family housing. They present themselves as townhouses with no garden access, and then a selection of flats. So, so I would say, echo Karen's point about the affordable housing, and that they are not family homes. That, as I said, effectively goes to the area, and well, we could put down flooding issues as well because that's already been flagged up. But I think traffic and the impact on itself of the traffic, I think will be really difficult for residents.
Yeah.
If that is built.
Okay. John, of your many points, what are your key ones?
One of them, I was questioning whether they were taking for granted and making access to themselves.
Yes,
I
they
always
are.
thought that was a private road. Do they own it?
Yes, on the block plan, it does show, it does sort of curve out.
It includes it.
It includes it.
Does that prove they control it?
Well, yes, because the previous application that has planning consent showed access for Kingsville.
Okay, so if that's been established already. I've got the problem about waste collection and not so much flooding, the surface water and off the drainage.
Okay.
Which I think you mentioned already. In terms of the general appearance of it, It's obviously less dense than the plan with a big hole in it. But to me, the views of the houses don't look as attractive as the original. Might have been a lot more behind the original ones, but I don't think the style of the houses is fitting for that place, that part of the edge of town.
Okay.
I don't think that Karen mentioned it's in the conservation area. I was looking at the map. It's
Just
absolutely
outside,
on the
actually.
edge. It's absolutely, New Road is, but that's what isn't. So it should be treated the same thing should apply for basis conservation area. And then I've jotted down a few of the neighbourhood plan policies, which will, in my view, need to be mentioned.
Right.
The first being SFDH1. It should respect positive aspects of the character of the adjoining area, which I don't think it does. I'm not sure about SFDH2. SFDH3, the scale, positioning and orientation. There is no facility, I don't think, mentioned for the panels. The roofs don't look as though they have large south-facing areas. And I think that's something that these days should be built in. SFDH6 refers to architectural quality, and SFDH7 refers to local and good quality materials. And I would say it fails on both of those. And finally, SFDH8 requires archaeological assessments.
Yes. Yeah.
And that should certainly be a requirement. Otherwise, points to be made by the people.
Okay. Super. I think you'll have anything to add to that. Lack of safe crossing point, provision for electric charging vehicles. I think you could certainly have solar panels on block B, which is the main block of flats. Lack of materials, we can't approve it without knowing what materials they're going to be using. I think we might even pin down a bit more in the housing development submission. What they've said, their summary about the affordable housing, they've said, while there is a significant need generally for family homes, studies carried out have identified that the need in North Dorset is largely for affordable rented or social rented housing with a lower need for intermediate housing. Therefore, it should remain a priority that provision of affordable housing is protected, because the benefit of the audience, the National Planning Policy Framework does allow for developers to not have to deliver that which the local plan requires in terms of affordable housing if they're developing a brownfield site. However, as Dorset Council have pointed out to them, it was already clear before they bought it. So that doesn't really stand. And Dorset Council is saying you really must stick to your 30%, which would mean with the 24, that 7 would need to be affordable. Anyway, so I think definitely a point about that in terms of affordable home, we must have some rentable affordable homes. Yeah. And I think that's probably enough for now. Yeah. Okay. They have provided an arboricultural method statement. There is one existing tree on there next to it, a lime tree. There's a group of trees on the escarpment, and there's a small provision, but they have said, and in fact, I did, in case this point came up, let me just go into my notes here. I did take a quick photograph of it because I ran out of time. What they have said about landscaping. The landscaping for the site is relatively simple given the urban setting and the provision of private gardens, where it is expected that individual residents would wish to landscape their gardens to their individual tastes. Within the public circulation spaces in the site, there will be predominantly hard standing interspersed with structural planting comprising trees and hedges. So there we are, and there's some hedging along the front, and that's about it. Because most of it's been going over to housing, as we've already discussed. So,
Okay, so we have a proposal.
we have a second done. Are we voting? In favour, say aye. Good. Thank you. So, next, from one extreme to another, the installation of a CCTV camera on the front of HSBC in the Commons. Karen. All those in favour? Lovely. Thank you. Great. Yeah, our friends from Yeatmans Lane. So we have another planning proposal from the stables in Yeatmans Lane for a summer house. They appeared at the last Planning and Highways meeting looking for an extension, which we did approve in that instance. Does anyone have any comments to make about the summer house?
First of all, I propose support. That's the time, because I think people are going to be working at home, so it's more of this sort of thing cropping up. So I propose support. They've got a massive garden right there.
Massive garden. You're quite sure you've got the right place?
Yeah, I think that's
It's not a massive garden.
isn't it?
No,
Oh, right.
no.
I thought it was.
It's a tiny little triangle that you onto the house.
Oh,
It's on the corner of Yeatmans Lane and Well Lane.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Very small patch.
Do you have a view on this, John?
I don't know whether it's worth trying to block these developments. It's just, first of all, it was one little building, and now it's an extension, which they've got. Then it's a summer house. There'll be nothing left soon, it'll be like a shanty town. I'm uncomfortable with it on such a small site.
Okay.
It's what I would describe as overdevelopment.
Yeah.
And I would propose that we object it. Although I'm not sure whether why planning permission needed something like that. It's a portable building. So I don't need
Just
to
a
know
bit portable. I don't.
But given that they've asked, I would say no.
Okay. I think maybe they're just dotting their I's and crossing their T's. Andy, do you have a view?
Well, that thing I was going to question whether, because sort of it's a wooden frame sort of structure, basically a glorified shed, whether it needed planning permission. If it does need planning permission, I take the point John's made. I think it looks from the design and location, it's in keeping. I can't really see grounds to object. I don't think it overlooks the neighbours or impacts on the environment or anything else. So I would be content to offer no objection to it.
Okay. You have all three options on the table.
Yeah.
Right.
You need to take them in the order they've been received. So you have support in the first instance.
Do I? Okay. Does anyone support Karen's support? So Karen has proposed that we support it.
I've got no objection. I have to say.
Okay. John.
Well, I wouldn't have agreed with that one. I would have
Okay.
gone for no objection. But no.
Well, not necessarily, because I haven't said anything yet.
That's true.
So,
I would still disagree with that.
okay, I can't support that resolution either, and the reason for that is that the reason they have to go for planning permission is because it fronts a main road. If we were at the rear of the building and were a certain distance from the main road or boundary, then that would be a different case. But in this instance, it's right facing the road. It can be seen by all the neighbours. And I do completely agree with John's view that whilst I did support the extension because it was completely in keeping with the house and did look quite cute, this doesn't have anything to do with the house. It will obscure the extension, so it kind of already disturbs the setting of the extension. And I agree that all of a sudden we're just getting a collection of sheds in the garden. And given how visible this garden is, that the whole thing will start looking like a shanty town. So personally, I would not support it. Gillian, I appreciate your queries, but actually you're not allowed to just liberally ask questions in the middle of a super. Okay, lovely. Didn't hear you. Thank you. So, what do we do now?
So you've got two options. The amendment proposal is on the table. So formally, you can move to the vote. It might be that Karen has decided to withdraw. I'm not suggesting that you do at all, but just so that you're not. There you go. So you've now moved to no objection.
Okay.
And if
I'll
Anne supports no
support it.
objection, you can move it to the vote.
Okay, so, okay, no objection, seconded. All in favour, sorry, all in favour. Okay.
You have.
And.
Okay, so no, so if you are then going to in favour, against,
Yeah.
or and then
Abstain,
and then
against,
abstain.
that's it. All those against? Two.
Okay, so Chair, you have an equality of votes. You now have the option for casting vote.
Oh, the power.
If you
Okay.
vote against, the
Yeah.
motion falls, and then you will have a new motion to put forward and hopefully get a majority vote.
Ah, okay. Or we could be stuck here for some time. Well, so can I ask the two of you, do you really strongly support this?
Julian's comment, it's in the conservation area, and I can't remember the conservation officer's report. So, I have. Yeah.
No, the privacy is not yet, so they've been asked.
So in reality, it's in the conservation area, really, and everyone's got concerns, we should probably say that.
Would we be happier if we deferred it? Or what's the correct term?
Because you have a time limit,
Yeah,
you won't be able to have another opportunity to comment on this one. Whatever you submit tonight goes to the planning authority. You can submit. So if, for example, we took that equality of votes and you said you didn't want to use your casting vote,
yeah.
you could agree as a committee that you were split between objecting to it and not having any objections to it. And I can submit that as the comment. So then the planning officer will see that the committee was divided, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because
Yeah.
it shows the views that have been expressed.
And well, I think that's probably the best option, actually, because then the planning people know that, you know, we were not unanimous, and then we don't waste time trying to convince each other when there's any four of us.
Or we could say subject to the conservation report, because really, you know, take that.
Could we say that?
You can say that. Absolutely. At the moment, you have a motion that has fallen. Well, it hasn't fallen. It hasn't.
It's stalled.
It's stalled.
Yeah.
And that will hinge on your casting vote. So there's another suggestion going forward that if you can see that reaching equality of a majority of votes, that would be a
Okay.
way forward.
So council proposal, we object subject to the conservation areas, conservation officers report.
Okay, do I need to deal with the previous proposal by using my casting vote and then moving on to the new proposal?
Council amend the proposal.
Right.
And support the seconders, happy to. Then we can go forward.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes? Great, okay, well, thanks, Karen, I think that's a good idea,
Can I
so.
just check that Sarah's, because poor Sarah, we've given her a
It's usually easier than this, folks.
amazing. Okay, that's fine. We're good to carry on. So you have the amended proposal to affect
Excellent.
subject to the conservation.
Karen
officer.
has proposed, Andy has seconded. Let's go to the vote on that.
We object
Yes,
unless the conservation officer.
subject to the conservation officer's comments and views on
Being
the matter.
satisfied.
Okay,
Excellent.
marvellous, well done, everyone. Right. Okay, next, nearly there. So next is St James's Lodge, Raspberry Lane, erection of first floor extension, porch and carport. Yes, I have to say, I'll just for a change, I'll start on this. I have to say that I think the drawings are quite poor for this, because it doesn't really tell you exactly where the carport is going to. I mean, it vaguely tells you where the carport is going to be. There is already a ground floor extension, and they are proposing to extend upwards. I think that that is probably a practical use, and I doubt that Dorset Council are going to find fault with that. What I take issue with is the carport, which will be seen from Raspberry Lane. It's going to be very close to St James's Lodge, which is the adjoining, which is neighbouring property going south. And we have the block plan there. There. Now, on this plan, it doesn't show you where the carport is. Do we have that plan?
No, but I can grab it from the.
Okay. Then we'll just show everybody. Site and block plan. Okay, that's it. Yes. So that the red square blob at the bottom, as you can see, that is extremely close to the boundary with St James's Lodge, which is that house just to the south of it. Due to the nature of the rising nature of Raspberry Lane from St James's Cottage going up to St James's Lodge, there's quite a sharp dip at the back of that house. So the cottage, the carport will not be on the same level as the back of that house. It'll be that much higher than it. So you will be able to see the carport from Raspberry Lane. And Raspberry Lane is just such a special little area, and I really don't feel that that is going to add anything to that area at all. I don't really think you'll see that much of, due to the nature of the gates and the hedging that is already there of the first floor extension. But I do think that carport is a no for me. And it will very much affect the setting of the other house in relation to the lane. And on that basis, I don't know if we can split it. Are we allowed to say we support this bit of the application, but not that bit?
As part of your comments, you will need an overrule, because you need to take the planning application as a single entity.
Yeah.
But as part of your supporting comments, you can absolutely specify. So what you'll need to look for is the overwhelming response to the planning application as a whole.
Yeah.
And then.
Okay. Well, I'm ready to propose. Does anyone else have anything they would like to add about this application?
I would have commented that the carport would be better further up. And I might therefore suggest that we accept the proposal subject to the carport being sited more nearer the centre of the plan rather than against the bottom boundary.
But we'll still see even clearer there from the lane.
Are you worried about the lane?
Yes, I am. I'm worried about how it affects the setting of Raspberry Lane. You know, because it's very close to the bobby, which itself predates the house.
It's probably too.
Yeah, I would object on the basis that I don't understand the plan, because whether you look at Google Maps or from Raspberry Lane and try and work out exactly where it's going, it's not clear. So I don't know. I wouldn't know what I was actually supporting. And it's just, as you said at the very beginning, a very poor drawing, and the block plan doesn't lend itself either. And when you look from a helicopter view down, you think, really? And I can't make head and tails of it, so I don't know what I'll be voting for. So
Yes, probably object as well, because I noticed that highways can't even work it out.
yeah.
There's a report on the portal saying that even so highways can't work out how they're going to get it. How are we going to?
Yeah.
And it's in the conservation area. There is no conservation officer's report, and I think that Gillian's comment needs to be stated about the dark sky policy.
Light pollution.
And the lights of the carport, yes, absolutely. It's a very good point. Yeah. So I propose that we object to this.
Seconded.
Super. And I'll capture the reasons that you've discussed as we've gone around the table. Thank you. Okay. Right. Imber Road. So I've been and had a look at this, then if anyone else has. So the proposal is to erect a single-storey rear extending extension extending 6 metres beyond the rear wall of the original dwelling house, 3.78 metres maximum height, ridge height, and 2.37 metres high at the eaves. Anyone else been to have a look? Got any views? Okay. Yeah. Karen?
Sorry, what was it?
I can't see a problem with it.
No, yeah, so I got,
Yeah.
I can't see a problem.
Super.
So,
Okay. Seconded. Vote. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right then. So we come to, how are we doing for time?
It's just around 8 o'clock.
Marvellous. Okay. Good. So that means we have plenty of time, Bernard, for you and the question of the solar farm. So let's just recap here. The proposal is to construct a solar photovoltaic farm, battery storage and associated infrastructure, including inverters, batteries, substations, security cameras, fencing, access tracks and landscaping. Location is land at Park Farm, access to Park Farm, Gillingham. So that is that very last turning on the right just before you get to Aldi. Oh no, Orchard Park rather. Right, so we don't have the authority to determine planning. Oh no, that's not it. But anyway, I think what is our?
So if I can just help you with this,
Yes.
because it's a Gillingham application, it wasn't sent to us for consultation during the consultation period for planning. However, they are still invited comments. Gillingham Town Council actually commented that they were concerned that it might affect the views from Castle Hill for Shaftesbury, but they themselves didn't have any particular worries about it.
Okay.
So it was on their prompt to the developer or to the applicant that we were consulted, and the letter came through after they'd finished their public consultation.
Okay, thank you. So, Karen, could I just go straight to Bernard, just so that we can then think about this with Bernard's comments ringing in our ears?
Okay, so I have got, is that the one you'd like to share?
After the plan.
Okay, that's fine. Let me just see what else I had for you. Rather. I've got a lot. That one?
Yeah. Plan shows Shaftesbury bottom right, Gillingham top left, and Motcombe straddling north and middle. And it shows the topography, that is the proposed solar farm of a blue, both the red plotted on the detailed plans. They're at an elevation of about 75 meters above sea level. I've drawn a cone, 2 red lines from Castle Hill, what generally is referred to as the cone vision. And that viewpoint on Castle Hill is 220 meters above the mistaken. So essentially looking down onto that this solar farm. The green areas are the areas of major woodland, and the light green area on the right-hand top side is the AOND, and it's noteworthy that the proposed open space within Red Road is a projection of the Scotland.
Is that a new plan that you sent over?
It's on that plan. What I'm saying is that space, open space is part of Red Road above further to the side.
Oh, it's here.
Yeah, there's a viewpoint of open space in the AOD. That I would suggest also open up would give you a view of solar farm. So the photograph is taken next to is from that viewpoint. So the land in the middle left side in the middle ground with the skyline in the background, pencil bridge and Alpha Sky. Land, light coloured land to the left middle is where the solar farm is proposed. And no amount of the existing woodland intervening, but because of the elevation, there's no way in which any planting can reduce the visual impact of that solar farm. So I would strongly urge to object to the views that are referred to from Shaftesbury, knowledge that they can't be screened. I think this is going to be a horrific intrusion into a much treasured view and would draw attention to south-facing panels. We know, we see in sunsets, we see the reflection of solar farms out in East Somerset. This would be an incredible water impact, and I think it should be even. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, right. I was going to propose objection, and I was going to state objection on the grounds of endorsing the Gillingham Town Council's comments, which were strong objections. There is no archaeologist assessment that has been completed, so that needs to be done before decision. Historic England strongly objects. We need to endorse the Historic England report. Also, Dorset Council Senior Landscape Architect has also objected. The Ramblers Association has objected. It obstructs the very, very important route, the White Hart route. So Historic England states that the solar panel will cause unacceptable harm to the significance of a highly designated and nationally important heritage assets. So it's all very, very close to the, I can't remember the exact terms, but it quotes the Gillingham Royal Forest. So that's my list, and the national planning policy that was quoted was NPPF 201. I didn't bother looking it up, but I would have thought that considering that came from the senior landscape architect, that would be very significant.
Okay,
That's my objection.
Okay, Andy.
Yeah, I want to object to it on grounds of visual immunity, and that it takes away the visual immunity. When you look at the fields, which I'm sort of estimating, which sit behind Orchard Park, it's a massive space. I mean, it's huge, and when you compare it to, I mean, we all know how big a footprint Orchard Park and the associated industrial estate there is. It's quite a size. This just dwarfs it. It will be like somebody landed a spaceship, and we have to object.
Okay, John.
I'm torn, I have to say, because first of all, I don't think we should disagree with Gillingham Town Council. It's on their patch, and if their view should be more important than our view, their opinions are not visible. On the other hand, we have a climate emergency that if everybody turns around and says, I don't want it on my backyard, we're never going to solve. And so I don't like objecting, and because I feel conflicted about it, I'm inclined to abstain. I hear what people say about the effect of that, but if everybody says that across the country, we don't get any solar farms. And a lot of people would say, well, that would be a good thing. But I mean, I saw some comments put up against it. Somebody's saying it would be better to have a nuclear power station. But what they meant is in somebody else's backyard.
Yeah. And
it's one of those things that we're going to have to learn to live with, I think. Now, everybody's going to fight for their own plans. I'm not prepared to give
Gosh, we're very interested in listening to everyone's views, and Bernard, thank you for your comments. As soon as this came in, actually, on one of our weekly digests, I did go up to Castle Hill with a pair of binoculars and a compass and identify the site, having looked at the planning application. And then I did some research online to see if there are any occasions where solar panels, the installation of solar panels, vary in any way from being installed due south, whereas for reasons of geography or whatever, they may be southwest south or south southeast or anything like that. But no, it appears that they are always installed due south. Interestingly, Castle Hill is almost exactly due west of there. So we are not directly facing them. What we would get is the side at certain times when the sun was at a certain angle. If you're up there, then you would get a slice of light. So I think, in all honesty, I take people's points, of course, but then I completely agree with John. We are in a climate emergency. Do we seriously think, and I don't mean this to sound, I'm not trying to sound challenging, I do mean it as a question. Do we seriously think we have the right to turn down a solar farm on the basis of our right to have a nice view? Okay, no, it's a fair question. I mean, I get it, but that's okay. Well, but John is right. You know, there are many things that we are just. Okay, well, everyone is entitled to their view, and we are simply sharing what we think. But I think we can see in one small little microcosm of a nutshell here in Shaftesbury how very tricky solving the climate emergency is going to be. However, back to the matter in hand. So Karen has proposed that we object for the reasons that she has given. Andy has supported her objection. John is going to abstain. What happens if I abstain? Does the motion then carry between two positives?
It does, because only votes in favour or votes against are counted. An abstention is equivalent to not voting.
Okay.
So if you have 2 in favour, you would need to have 2 against to get the equality of votes.
Right.
In the scenario.
I will support the motion because I do think we support giving them, if nothing else. So we will take a vote. Those in favour.
So this is in favour of objecting.
Yes. Yes.
You have 3 in favour. That's Karen and
We
have John abstaining, and we will capture the comments. Yes, I thought that. And we'll capture the comments as per the discussion.
It's absolutely right. It's a very, very difficult question. And, it's very valid.
Yes, you know, this is not the last time that we're going to be having these discussions, everyone. So, Richard, perhaps you'd like to tell Bernard that his fears were groundless, and we were simply airing.
Not lying dead on the bottom.
Great. Well,
That takes us to the end of the meeting. So at 8:14 p.m. you can close the meeting.
consider the meeting closed. Sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you everybody. Thanks for coming.
Pleasure.